Welcome everyone, my name is Jalal and today we'll be talking about the visitor pattern. The purpose of a visitor pattern is to define the new operation without introducing modification to an existing object structure. So if you have some code, you do not want to modify the code, but you just want to add some functionality, the visitor pattern is a good fit for such a change. So let's assume that we have a composite object, which consists of components. The object structure is fixed. We either cannot change it, or we don't plan to add new type of element to the structure. Now how could we add a new functionality to our code without the modification of existing classes? In this instance, the visitor pattern is the answer for your question. So basically what we have to do is to add functions which accept the visitor class to each element of the structure. Our component will allow the visitor to visit and perform any required action to that element. We will extract the algorithm which will be applied to the object structure from the classes. And we will, in this instance, or the example that we have, we will make use of the open-close principle as we don't modify the code, but we still extend the functionality by providing a new visitor implementation. This is the UML, and you can see here that the client uses a visitor implementation and apply it to the object structure. The composite object, as you see here under the visitor, its component and apply the visitor to each of them. So you can see that the concurrent element A and concurrent element B are accepting a visitor, simply basically allowing them to visit them. Lastly, this method is the same of other elements in the structure, so it's perform double dispatch, which is passing itself. So for the implementation, as you can see here, we have an object document. So a document has multiple elements. We keep those elements in a list. We are passing here a UID to the document just to have keep a unique ID. And the document will have a function called accept that will take the visitor and loop over all the elements of the document and apply the visit or what the visitor functionality would like to apply. This is one of the elements, is JSON element. So our document will either have a JSON document or an XML document. Obviously the JSON elements also extend the element, so they accept the function accept and they apply the visit on itself. Here the element visitor, implement the visitor. So this is what the functionality that the visitor will add. In this instance, we are not really want to do any functionality. All what we are adding is we're printing, basically, because we have the elements that we have in our document can be either an XML or a JSON. When we hit the JSON, when we hit the visit function within XML, we are gonna print out that we are processing an XML. When we hit the JSON, we are gonna print out that we're processing a JSON, just to see that we are invoking two different functions based on the type, because we are overloading this function here. Basically, this is the main function. You can see the main function, we instantiate the visitor, an element visitor, which is of type visitor, and we have a document. And in that document, we keep adding elements. We add first we add JSON with a unique ID. We add another JSON with a unique ID just to make sure they're different, or in the IO of the program, they are different. And we add an XML element at the end. And if you can see, when you print out, you can see that we are printing processing JSON, processing XML, which shows us that the visitor was applied to these three elements. Now let's go to the demo. So here is our demo. So this is the element. This is just a parent class. It just has a unique ID. So every element will have a unique ID, but we'll have a function accept that every element will extend this. Our elements will have to implement the function accept. So let's start from here. So we can, as we talked earlier, we have a document, and this document extended elements. We have a list of a document has a list of elements, and elements can be either a JSON or an XML. And because it extend the class element here, or the object element here, you have to implement the function accept. And this function accept will take a visitor and we loop all over the elements and apply the functionality that the visitor apply. Obviously, this functionality can be anything. In our case, we're just printing out an output. So this is the visitor interface. Or what it does, it has a visitor function that will take an XML and a visitor that takes a JSON, just overload into a function. This is the visitor. So here we can do any functionality. In our instance, this is because this is demo only. We're just trying to show that we actually invoke this function. We're just gonna print out that we're processing an XML, and here we're gonna process a JSON because we are taking a JSON function, and this is an XML. We're processing XML. This is the XML element. This is the JSON element, and this is the main function. So the main function, we have a visitor, we have document, and in this document we add new JSON with a unique ID. We add another JSON with another unique ID, just so in the program there are two different elements, and we add another XML. And here, because this is a visitor, we apply all the visitors. We apply the visitor functionality on all these elements. This is what we do here. So D is a document, and then we apply the function accept. And if we go right here, we'll see we are looping all over the elements, and because it takes a visitor, it applies the visitor functionality. In our case, we'll only print out these two statements. So if we run this function, you can see that in the beginning we print it processed the JSON, which is the first element we added. Then it prints another JSON, which is the second element we added. Then it prints out an XML, which is an XML to add it. And this is pretty much it for the visitor pattern. So basically, just to summarize, visitor pattern, if in the case that you have an object or you have some code with some functionality that you just would like to add some new functionality to it without changing it, the visitor pattern is a very good use case for that. Well, thank you very much.